My name is Jake, and for most of my adult life, I thought I was living the dream. I was married to Ashley, my college sweetheart, for 7 years. We had the kind of relationship that made people jealous. A big house in the suburbs, 2 loyal golden retrievers, and a life that seemed like it was pulled from a magazine cover. Ashley had always been the center of attention wherever we went. She was effortlessly beautiful, with a charm that could win over even the grumpiest stranger. She made me feel like the luckiest guy alive, and for years I genuinely believed that I was. Our marriage started strong, full of late-night talks about the future, road trips to nowhere, and dreams of the family we'd one day have. But somewhere along the way, the sparkle began to fade. The signs were small at first, almost too small to notice. But looking back, they were there. Ashley started becoming more distant, her attention slowly shifting away from me. There were more girls' nights, more time spent scrolling on her phone, and fewer moments where it felt like we were truly connecting. I chalked it up to the natural ebb and flow of marriage. Every relationship has its ups and downs, right? But the doubts started creeping in, uninvited and persistent. I tried to push them aside, convincing myself that Ashley was just busy, or stressed, or maybe even bored with the routine of our lives. I didn't want to be the paranoid husband who questioned every move she made. I trusted her. I had to trust her. After all, trust was the foundation of everything we'd built together. The cracks in our marriage weren't glaring, but they were enough to unsettle me. Ashley became more guarded, her phone never leaving her side. When I asked her about it, she laughed it off. "Work stuff, Jake. You wouldn't understand," she'd say with a wink, as if that would put me at ease. Didn't. I should have pushed harder. I should have asked the uncomfortable questions. But I didn't. I told myself that the Ashley I knew would never betray me, that the love we shared was too strong to be broken by something as trivial as suspicion. I was wrong. The subtle changes in Ashley's behavior began to feel like more than just a phase. I'd walk into the room, and she'd quickly put her phone down or switch tabs on her laptop. At first, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. She had a demanding job and a close-knit circle of friends, and I figured she deserved her privacy. But the distance between us was undeniable. Conversations grew shorter, often punctuated with her impatient sighs. Date nights felt more like obligations than quality time. When I reached out to hold her hand or wrap my arm around her, she'd pull away, claiming she was tired or had a headache. Then there were the girls' nights. They used to be once in a while, but now they were almost a weekly event. "You don't mind, do you?" she'd ask, her tone casual but dismissive, like my answer didn't really matter. I wanted to say something, maybe suggest spending time together instead, but I was too afraid of sounding controlling. So I let it slide. One night, curiosity got the better of me. She had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she went to take a shower. It buzzed with a notification, and I glanced at the screen. It was just a message from her friend group chat, but something about it felt off. It was a feeling I couldn't shake, a whisper in the back of my mind that said, "There's more to this." I didn't open her phone. I wanted to. I was tempted, but I knew that crossing that line would create a whole new set of problems. If Ashley found out I was snooping, it would give her the perfect excuse to turn everything back on me. So, I put the thought aside and convinced myself that I was just being paranoid. That was easier said than done. Over the next few weeks, the unease grew. Ashley started working late more often and coming home with flimsy excuses about meetings running long or catching up with friends after work. One evening, she came back smelling of cologne. Not mine, and not the kind her friends would wear. When I asked about it, she waved it off. Probably from the guy sitting next to me at the bar. "Relax, Jake. You're being ridiculous." Her words stung, but I couldn't prove otherwise. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was overthinking things. After all, Ashley had always been good at making me feel like my concerns were unwarranted. But then, there was the night I overheard her on the phone. She was in the bedroom with the door slightly ajar, her voice low and playful. I paused in the hallway, not wanting to eavesdrop, but the tone of her laughter sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't the way she laughed with her friends. It was something else, something intimate. When I stepped into the room, she jumped, quickly ending the call. Work stuff, she said again, her smile strained. I didn't press her, but my gut told me I should have. I started to wonder if this was just in my head or if there was really something going on. I hated the idea of doubting her, but I couldn't ignore the growing pile of inconsistencies. Still, I told myself that until I had something concrete, I couldn't accuse her of anything. I wanted to believe that the woman I married was still in there somewhere, that whatever was happening, we could fix it. But the more I tried to hold on, the more she seemed to pull away. The tension in our home became impossible to ignore. Every interaction with Ashley felt like walking on eggshells. She was short-tempered, dismissive, and increasingly distant. It was as if she'd become a stranger overnight. I found myself questioning everything. Every word she said, every late-night girls' night, every moment she spent glued to her phone. One Saturday morning, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I suggested we spend the day together, just the two of us. Ashley looked at me like I'd suggested something absurd. Jake, I already made plans, she said, her tone sharp. I can't just drop everything because you suddenly want to play husband of the year. Her words cut deep, but I bit my tongue. I didn't want to escalate things. Maybe next weekend, then? I offered weakly. We'll see, she replied, already turning away from me. She left the house a few hours later, dressed in a way she hadn't for me in years. Heels, makeup, a fitted dress. She claimed she was meeting her friends for brunch, but something about her story didn't sit right with me. Still, I didn't ask questions. I just watched her walk out the door, my gut screaming at me that something was wrong. That afternoon, I called my best friend, Matt. I hadn't told anyone about the growing doubts in my mind, but I needed to talk to someone. Matt and I had been friends since college, and I trusted him more than anyone else. If anyone could give me some clarity, it was him. Jake, you've got to talk to her, Matt said after I poured everything out. If something's bothering you this much, you can't just ignore it. You deserve answers. I don't know, man, I sighed. What if I'm wrong? What if it's all in my head, and I just make things worse by bringing it up? And what if you're right? He countered. Look, I know it's hard, but if Ashley's not being honest with you, you need to know. You can't keep living like this. Matt's words stuck with me, but they didn't make the decision any easier. I felt like I was stuck in limbo, trapped between my fear of the truth and my desperate hope that I was wrong. Later that evening, Ashley came home, looking far too cheerful for someone who had just spent the day with friends. I asked her how brunch was, and she launched into a detailed story about mimosas and gossip. It all sounded rehearsed, like she was reading from a script. I didn't press her, but the weight in my chest grew heavier. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention to the little things. The way she avoided my gaze when I asked about her day. The way she'd smile at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she always seemed to have a reason to be anywhere but with me. Every piece of the puzzle added up, but I still didn't have the one thing I needed, proof. One night, as we lay in bed, Ashley rolled over, her back to me. Jake, she said, her voice soft. I've been thinking, maybe we should take a break, just some time apart to figure things out. Her words felt like a punch to the gut. What do you mean? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I feel like we've been drifting apart, she said, still not looking at me. Maybe some space would help us figure out what we really want. I didn't know what to say. My heart was pounding, and my mind was racing. Was this her way of easing into something she wasn't ready to admit? Or was she genuinely trying to save what was left of our marriage? I couldn't tell anymore. I don't want space, Ashley, I said finally. I want to fix this. She didn't respond. She just lay there, silent and unmoving, as if the conversation had already ended. And in a way, maybe it had. The days after Ashley's "let's take a break" suggestion felt like I was living in a fog. We still lived under the same roof, but it was as if we occupied completely different worlds. She was always busy, out with friends, taking long phone calls, or disappearing into the bathroom with her phone for what felt like hours. I tried to focus on work and keep myself distracted, but the weight of her detachment was suffocating. One night, I decided to suggest therapy. It felt like a last-ditch effort, but I wasn't ready to give up. Ashley, I've been thinking, I said as we sat in the living room, her eyes glued to the TV. Maybe we could talk to someone, a counselor or therapist, could help us figure things out. She didn't even look at me. Therapy? Seriously, Jake? You think I want to sit in some stuffy office and talk about feelings? That's not going to fix anything. Then what will? I asked, my voice rising slightly. Because whatever's happening between us, it's not working. You barely talk to me anymore. You're gone all the time. Do you even want this to work? She finally turned to me, her expression cold and unyielding. Maybe I don't, she said bluntly. Maybe I'm tired of pretending everything is fine when it's not. Her words hit me like a truck. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. So that's it? I asked, my voice trembling. You're just done? After everything we've been through? Don't make this about you, Jake, she snapped. You're the one who's been too busy with work to even notice what I need. You're always gone, always focused on everything but me. What did you expect?
I stared her, dumbfounded.
I expected a wife who would tell me if she was unhappy. Not this, whatever this is. She rolled her eyes and got up from the couch. I'm done talking about this, she said as she walked upstairs, leaving me alone in the living room, drowning in confusion and anger. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every fight, every moment that had led us here. Was she right? Had I really been so focused on work that I missed the signs? Or was this just her way of deflecting blame? The following morning, things went from bad to worse. Ashley had left early, leaving a note on the counter that said, "Gone for the day. Don't wait up." It was cold, impersonal, and completely unlike her. Something inside me snapped. I couldn't sit back and keep pretending everything was fine. I needed answers. I decided to do something I'd sworn I'd never do. I went upstairs, opened her closet, and started looking. At first, I felt ridiculous, like some paranoid husband in a bad TV drama. But then I found it. A small box tucked away behind her stack of sweaters. Inside was a collection of receipts, expensive dinners, jewelry, and hotels I didn't recognize. There were also a few notes, written in handwriting I didn't recognize. "Can't wait to see you," one of them read. "Last night was amazing." My stomach turned. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. I sat on the floor, clutching the box, my mind racing. This wasn't just in my head. There was something going on, something Ashley had been hiding. When she came home later that evening, I was waiting for her in the kitchen. The box sat on the counter between us. Her face paled when she saw it. "What's this?" she asked, trying to sound casual, but her voice wavered. "You tell me," I said, my tone icy. "What are these receipts? Who are these from?" Her eyes darted to the box, then back to me. For the first time, she looked genuinely nervous. "It's not what you think, Jake," she said quickly. "I can explain." "Then start explaining," I said, crossing my arms. "Because this looks a hell of a lot like you've been lying to me." Ashley hesitated, her lips trembling as if she was searching for the right words. But instead of coming clean, she shook her head and said, "You've been going through my things? Are you serious, Jake? Do you even hear yourself? This isn't about me going through your things," I shouted. "This is about you sneaking around behind my back." "Who is it, Ashley? Who have you been seeing?" Her face hardened, and the nervousness vanished. "You don't get to play the victim here," she snapped. "You're the one who's been ignoring me for years. What did you expect? That I'd just sit around waiting for you to notice me?" Her words felt like a slap to the face. "So that's your excuse?" I asked, my voice shaking. "You think this justifies betraying me?" "I don't need to justify anything to you," she said coldly. "Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with work, we wouldn't be in this mess." I couldn't take it anymore. The woman standing in front of me wasn't the Ashley I married. She was a stranger who had no problem tearing me apart and blaming me for her actions. "You know what?" I said, my voice breaking. I'm done. I'm done trying to fix something you clearly don't care about. If you want out, Ashley, then go." She stared at me, her expression unreadable. Then she grabbed her purse and walked out the door without another word, leaving me alone in the wreckage of what used to be our life. The tension in our home had reached a boiling point, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. Ashley's distance, her sharp words, and the coldness in her gaze were eating away at me. Every day felt like a test of how much more I could take before something snapped. One night, as we sat in the living room, I decided to confront her about the growing divide between us. "Ashley, can we talk?" I asked cautiously. She didn't look up from her phone, just muttered, "What about?" "About us," I said. "I feel like things haven't been right for a while. We're barely talking, barely spending time together. What's going on?" She sighed, setting her phone down with exaggerated annoyance. "What do you want me to say, Jake? Things change. People change. Maybe we've just outgrown each other." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. "Outgrown each other?" I repeated. "Ashley, we've been together for 7 years. You don't just outgrow someone overnight. If something's wrong, we can fix it. But you have to talk to me." "Maybe I don't want to fix it," she said bluntly, her tone devoid of any emotion. "Maybe I'm tired of pretending everything's fine when it's not." The room fell silent as her words hung in the air. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "So that's it?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You're just done? You're not even willing to try?" She stood up, crossing her arms as she looked down at me. "Why should I? You're the one who's been checked out for years. Always working, always too busy to notice what I need. Maybe if you'd paid more attention, we wouldn't be here." I stared at her, stunned by the venom in her voice. "You can't seriously be blaming me for this," I said. "I've been working to give us a life, to give you everything you've ever wanted. And now you're telling me that's the problem." "I'm telling you I'm done," she said coldly. "You can keep pretending everything's fine, but I'm not playing along anymore." Without another word, she turned and walked upstairs, leaving me alone in the living room. I sat there, staring at the empty space where she'd stood, my mind racing. How had it come to this? How had the woman I loved turned into someone I barely recognized? The following day, Ashley's coldness continued. She left early, leaving a curt note on the counter. "Gone for the day. Don't wait up." Her detachment was like a dagger to the heart, but it also lit a fire inside me. I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I needed answers. I decided to search for clues, even though the thought of going through her things made me feel sick. I opened her closet and found a small box tucked away behind her neatly folded sweaters. Inside were receipts from expensive dinners, jewelry, and even hotels I didn't recognize. My stomach churned as I sifted through them. At the bottom of the box was a folded piece of paper, a handwritten note that read, "Can't wait to see you again. Last weekend was perfect." I froze, the note trembling in my hands. This wasn't just my imagination. This wasn't paranoia. This was proof. Ashley was seeing someone, and she'd been hiding it right under my nose. That evening, when she finally came home, I was waiting for her in the kitchen. The box sat on the counter between us. Her eyes widened when she saw it. "What's this?" she asked, her voice tight. "You tell me," I said, my tone colder than I'd ever heard it, "because it looks a hell of a lot like you've been lying to me." Her face paled, but she quickly recovered, crossing her arms defensively. "You went through my things?" she accused. "Unbelievable, Jake. Do you even hear yourself? Don't try to turn this around on me," I said sharply. "Who is it, Ashley? Who have you been seeing?" She hesitated for a moment, then shook her head. "You don't get to interrogate me like this," she said, her voice trembling with anger. "You've been checked out of this marriage for years, Jake. Don't act like you're some perfect husband." Her deflection only made my anger burn hotter. "Stop lying," I said, slamming my hand on the counter. "I deserve the truth, Ashley. Who is it?" For a moment I thought she might actually tell me, but instead, she grabbed her purse and stormed out of the house without another word. As the door slammed shut, I stood there, staring at the empty space where she'd been. My world was falling apart, and the woman I'd given everything to was at the center of its collapse. But I wasn't done yet. If she wouldn't give me answers, I'd find them myself. The moment the door slammed behind Ashley, I knew I couldn't sit around waiting for her to come clean. She had made it clear she wasn't going to give me the truth willingly. If I wanted answers, I'd have to find them myself. I went back to the box of receipts and notes, scanning through them again with a clearer mind. Among the receipts was a hotel booking confirmation with a check-in date from a weekend I'd been out of town for work. My hands shook as I typed the hotel's name into my laptop, desperate for more details. With a little digging and a call pretending to be a concerned guest, I found the room was booked under the name Eric. My brother. Felt like my world stopped. Eric? My brother, the person I trusted most? Memories flooded my mind, casual jokes, his frequent visits to our home when I wasn't around, and Ashley's overly polite but distant demeanor around him at family gatherings. It all started to click in the worst way possible. I sat in stunned silence for what felt like hours, the weight of the betrayal crushing me. My wife and my brother. The two people who were supposed to have my back had stabbed me in it instead. The anger surged through me like wildfire. I couldn't let this slide. I had to confront Eric. The next morning, I drove to his apartment, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly they turned white. When he opened the door, his face fell the moment he saw me. He knew. "Jake," he started, his voice hesitant. "What's going on? What's going on?" I spat. "Why don't you tell me, Eric? Or should I ask Ashley instead?" His face turned pale, and he stepped back, letting me into the apartment. "Look, Jake, I didn't mean for this to happen," he stammered. It just happened. "Don't give me that crap," I roared. "You've been sneaking around with my wife behind my back, and you want to tell me it just happened? How long, Eric? How long have you been doing this?" 6 months, he admitted quietly, his eyes glued to the floor. "I never wanted to hurt you, Jake. I swear." I laughed bitterly. "You didn't want to hurt me? You've been sleeping with my wife and lying to my face for 6 months. And you think that doesn't hurt? What kind of person does that to their own brother?" "I don't know what to say," he mumbled, his voice barely audible. "There's nothing you can say," I shot back. "You've destroyed everything. My marriage, my family, everything." Eric tried to explain himself, but I didn't want to hear it. I turned and walked out of his apartment, slamming the door behind me. My heart was pounding, and my mind raced with thoughts of revenge. They didn't just betray me, they humiliated me, and I wasn't about to let them get away with it. When I got home, Ashley was sitting in the living room, her arms crossed like she'd been waiting for me. "You went to see him, didn't you?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Damn right I did," I said. "At least he had the decency to admit what he did. What about you, Ashley? Are you going to keep lying? Or are you finally ready to tell me the truth?" Her eyes narrowed. "Fine," she snapped. "You want the truth, Jake? Here it is. I fell out of love with you a long time ago. Eric was there when you weren't. He made me feel wanted. You were so busy with work, you didn't even notice I was slipping away." Her words were like daggers, but they only fueled my rage. "You don't get to blame this on me," I said, my voice cold. "You made the choice to cheat. You made the choice to betray me. Don't you dare try to justify it." Ashley rolled her eyes. "Maybe if you'd been a better husband, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere." That was it. The last straw. I turned and walked away, my mind already working on a plan. They thought they could destroy me and get away with it. They were wrong. The betrayal burned inside me like a raging fire. I couldn't let them walk away unscathed. They had torn apart my life, my trust, and everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty. If they thought I'd just roll over and accept it, they were sorely mistaken. I started by gathering every piece of evidence I had. The receipts, the notes, the emails, and even the call log from the hotel. I made copies of everything. It was time to ensure the truth came to light. Not just for me, but for everyone who thought Ashley and Eric were saints. The first step was Ashley's family. They adored her, always boasting about how wonderful their daughter was and how lucky I was to have her. So, I sent them an anonymous package with copies of the notes and receipts, along with a detailed letter explaining what their perfect daughter had been up to. I didn't sign it, but I made sure it couldn't be traced back to me. The second step was Eric. I knew he'd been vying for a promotion at his job, constantly boasting about his spotless reputation. So I anonymously forwarded the emails and hotel receipts to his boss, along with a polite note suggesting they review his moral character. I figured someone who couldn't keep his personal life in order had no business managing others. But the final piece of my plan was the most satisfying. Ashley had always been active on social media, portraying our marriage as the epitome of happiness. She posted pictures of us smiling, captioned with phrases like, "My rock," and "forever grateful for this man." I used those posts against her. I created a public post from my own account, carefully detailing the timeline of her betrayal and attaching the evidence. I didn't rant or rage. I simply stated the facts. To everyone who thinks Ashley and I are the perfect couple, here's the truth, I wrote. By the time I woke up the next morning, the post had gone viral. Her friends, co-workers, and even distant acquaintances were commenting, expressing their shock and disgust. Ashley stormed into the house that morning, her face flushed with fury. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she screamed, waving her phone in the air. "You posted about us online? Are you insane?" I stood my ground, my expression calm. "What's insane, Ashley, is thinking you could betray me and get away with it. People deserve to know who you really are." "You've ruined me," she shouted. "My friends, my job. They're all turning on me because of you." "Good," I said coldly. "Now you know how it feels to have everything ripped away from you." As she continued yelling, I felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time since this nightmare began, I was in control. I wasn't just reacting to her lies. I was taking my life back. Eric wasn't spared either. He called me later that day, his voice panicked. "Jake, what did you do? My boss is questioning my integrity, and everyone's talking about the post. This could ruin me." "You ruined yourself, Eric," I said calmly. "Maybe next time, think twice before stabbing your own brother in the back." I hung up on him, not bothering to listen to his excuses. They didn't matter anymore. For the first time in weeks, I felt free. The pain was still there, but it was no longer paralyzing. I wasn't just a victim, I was someone who had fought back. And in the end, I knew I'd come out stronger for it. The aftermath of my actions unfolded quickly. Ashley's carefully curated life came crashing down. Her friends started distancing themselves, and rumors spread like wildfire at her workplace. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she had been called into HR after coworkers found the viral post. Her charm couldn't save her this time. Eric fared no better. His boss suspended him, pending an internal review of his conduct. Our family, once so united, turned on him. The betrayal was too much for anyone to overlook. He called me a few more times, pleading for a chance to explain himself, but I ignored every call. Ashley, however, refused to go quietly. She came home one last time to collect her things. "You've destroyed my life, Jake," she hissed as she packed her bags. "No, Ashley," I replied, my voice calm. "You destroyed it the moment you decided my brother was worth more than our marriage." She glared at me but had nothing to say. For once, the truth was undeniable. As she drove away, I felt a strange sense of closure. The pain of betrayal was still fresh, but the weight of living in denial had lifted. I was ready to move forward, without her, without Eric, and without the lies that had defined the last year of my life. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. The house, once filled with Ashley's presence, became a place of solitude and healing. I repainted the walls, rearranged the furniture, and donated anything that reminded me of her. It was cathartic, a physical way to reclaim my space. Therapy became a lifeline. Talking through the betrayal helped me process the anger and sadness, and eventually, I started to feel lighter. I stopped blaming myself for what happened. Ashley and Eric's choices weren't reflections of my worth. They were reflections of their own flaws. As for them, the fallout was far-reaching. Eric's suspension turned into termination, and Ashley left town after losing her job. Our family remained fractured, but I found comfort in the support of friends and those who stood by me. One day, I came across an old journal where Ashley and I had written dreams for our future. It was painful to read, but instead of throwing it away, I used it as motivation. I decided to pursue the dreams I had set aside. Traveling, trying new hobbies, and one day, maybe even starting a family. The betrayal left scars, but it also taught me resilience. I learned to trust myself again and to value honesty above all else. If there's one thing I'd say to anyone facing betrayal, it's this: you're stronger than you think. The pain doesn't last forever, and in the end, you can rebuild. I'm living proof of that,